Hello, Call of Duty fans. Welcome back. My hold shift recapping day 2 of the CDL Dallas home series. We've got a lot of games to go over. I am drained. I actually had like a decent outfit put together for today, but then I had to go watch the rest of the games from bed because it took nearly 12 hours to complete. So let's dig into it. Let's dig in through Group A first. Again, here were the results from the first day. We will be dealing with just elimination and just qualifiers for the day. So 6 matches in total, both teams who get knocked out, both teams who get qualified. And starting off the day, we'll start off with where the home team would land, Dallas going up against Toronto. Now, my prediction for this one was going to be a very clean, very easy 3-0 for Dallas. Toronto did look pretty good when they played up against Florida, enough to obviously find the win, but would they be able to compete up with Dallas? I didn't think so. However, it would be a very interesting map 1 Hackney hardpoint. Dallas lose their P2 spawns on Tire Shop initially, and on the second rotation, it forced them to fight from behind the entire way through. They did get a good zone, though, of the back half of the map, and they were able to take a little bit of a come-behind win, 250-235. Gunrunner up next, Search and Destroy. Toronto has been better at Search than they have been just about anywhere else. It wouldn't turn up here. Never really a contest as Dallas put on the pressure early and never really gave it up 6-2 in the Gunrunner. St. Petro for the Dom. Dallas was down after the first half and was forced to make a 10-point comeback with 90 seconds left. But it would become mathematically impossible around the 30-second mark, even though they gave it their go. So St. Petro for the Dom would turn up 156-145 for Toronto. Then we'd go to Gunrunner Hardpoint. Dallas was just simply put not outslaying throughout really the entirety of the series as much as I thought they would. They did get a second rotation P5 setup, but it instantly got broken by Toronto as they worked their way around the back. They would get a retake, get a lead, and then would never give it up. They would find their way to a 250-204 win, going to map number 5. Again, Toronto has been good at Search and Destroy. Do they have a chance to upset Dallas? It would have to be on Piccadilly. And Dallas just looked a little bit more complete. 6-2 the score there. Dallas will survive 3-2 the series. So now as we go forward to our next matchup, we'll go down to the losers bracket here first. We'll just do Group A as a whole. Los Angeles Girls going up against the Florida Mutineers. And again, this is one that I could have sworn was going to be just pretty much completely all in favor of Florida. But Los Angeles actually put together a very solid performance. Starting off on Ramaza Hardpoint, Florida was in control throughout the majority of the game. LIG wouldn't go away, but they wouldn't do enough to make the comeback 250-185. Search and Destroy. Again, the Guerrillas have been best when it comes to their Search and Destroy out of the rest of their modes. Frosty would hit a nutty ace in 1v4 fashion to complete one of the rounds, but then LIG would lose a player after a disconnect, and all I can think is, oh God, please don't leave the game. Don't get another forfeit. They wouldn't. They would stick it out, and they would come out to win 6-2, no problem. So then we'd go tied 1-1, and we'd get St. Petrograd for the domination. Florida's best Dom by far. We've never seen LIG play it. Now, granted, it has been a lot of time. Marky B let me know, hey, the stats don't really mean as much, but I hate to disagree with the lad, but I think I called this one right. St. Petro still looked very solid for Florida. Double AR setup that was there previously, which was very questionable for Florida, with Mox and Skies running double ARs, has now switched to Mox running the AR, Skies running the SMG. It would work best for both of those, and it would end up a 159-138 for Florida. Los Angeles Girls didn't look like they knew where they were going. Flat out, they did not look good on that map. Hackney Yard coming up for our 4th map. LAG gives it a solid go all the way through the hard point in the first rotation, but they would lose P5 and then get broken for the P2 spawns before we actually got to the second hard point. They would Florida would go up 100+ points and secure the W. Pharaoh and Frosty looked nuts on this one. Absolutely insane. 250-137. Florida for the 3-1, which would give us a Florida versus Toronto series. This was technically the last series of the night. As I'm recording this video, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. The games had just completed for the most part. Starts off in a 0K. Florida was just able to outmaneuver Toronto for the most part, 250-11. The Ramaza Search and Destroy, Florida would be down 0-3 early, but would bounce back with some really cheeky snipes late in the game to secure things up in round 11. 6-5 Florida, looking like it could potentially be a 3-0. We go to domination. Toronto has just been okay here. It was Gunrunner. It was pretty all over the place for both squads, but Toronto did a better job of just manipulating the middle of the map. That would lead to a natural advantage for getting more time on the B flag. Didn't matter which side they were starting on. They just got more time at B. 164-136. We'd go to a map 4. but that's where it would end. Florida start with a P2 break on Hackney Yard. They would break the second rotation of P2 as well, and they won the game in the second rotation on P4, 250-159. Florida advanced to the semifinals with Empire out of Group A. So then we go to Group B. Remember the results from yesterday. We had Paris surviving against Seattle, but I say survive very selectively. Chicago had a close run-in with Minnesota, even though it read as a 3-0. So getting to the Chicago-Paris matchup in the first place, you gotta remember that Paris did take Chicago to a map 5 last time these two teams met. Would that be similar here? Well, it would start off in this one of the same places. Gunrunner hardpoint up first. Chicago would be up going through most of the second rotation of hills on Gunrunner, but they would actually beef the spawn rotation as we got to our third rotation of hills from 5 to 1. But interestingly enough, it didn't just go 5-1-2. It would actually see a third hard point. Kismet Dens would secure essentially a comeback. Scump would drop 45 kills, which is a new record in the CDL, but it would be for the L, 250-230. Hell of a comeback effort from Paris, honestly speaking. St. Petra would be the search and destroy, and well, Envoy, he played like it was his playground yesterday on this map. Why stop there? He would continue to do it again here, picking up right where they left off. Multiple different looks offensively, great setups on defense, Formal getting value out of the sniper, and then Envoy, well, he finds himself an ace to close the map out, 6-4 Chicago. Going to the domination, Gunrunner, Chicago, again, wins the middle of the map. Have you seen a trend when it comes to Gunrunner domination? Paris could not find a way to bounce back. It would become mathematically impossible right on the 60-second mark, 174-147 Huntsmen. Map number 4, St. Petro. For the hard point, tight game all the way through, back and forth, and it appropriately would go back and forth to a P5, which traded hands multiple times before Chicago could fully lock things up. 250-231. Your scores will read a little bit backwards. My editing was a little bit off, but it was a 3-1. Paris taking that first map, not losing it, but Chicago makes their way into the playoff. So going to our first knockout matchup, Minnesota versus Seattle up first. Azir Cave. Minnesota's been playing here a lot lately, and they haven't found a convincing win yet, but they have looked solid on the map. Tight game all the way through. Seattle definitely keeping up with Minnesota, as we would not just live to a third rotation, but we would live it all the way to a third hill on Azir Cave. I don't think I've ever seen a game go all the way to another soccer field on Azir Cave. It was the first time I've seen it, and for Minnesota, they're happy to see it go their favor, 250-220. Aircloth Peak, search and destroy. Minnesota, all over it. Seattle, search and destroy, still not good. I'll give you an update when it gets better, 6-3. Gunrunner for the domination, and we wouldn't see it once, we'd see it twice. Seattle, sticking with Minnesota, their best map on their best mode, but the game ends in a well-timed draw as Minnesota was able to force a full extend to C and A, keep it neutral, and come back about 10-12 points in the last 60 seconds. It draws, but we would get a full replay once again. So what would happen the second time around? Well, it nearly ended up in a draw again, to be completely honest, but Seattle would hold on to their flag, doing better math the second time around to make sure they knew, hey, all we got to do is hold on to one flag and we win this game. They would do that, 170-152, but a very interesting game to say the least. I think that's our first draw we've seen, actually, when it comes to domination, so a very exciting one to go back and rewatch if you're looking for Gunrunner domination gameplay. But the drama wouldn't end there. You would get Hackney Yard for the hard point. Octane's carry potential decided it wanted to show up again, and once again it comes down to Minnesota in a hard point taking a gamble on winning off of one specific hill, but they weren't able to do the math properly. They try to break for scrap time late on P5 in Hackney. They lose out the rotation to P1. They don't fully close things out, and as they miss the rotation to the first hard point, they flip the spawns accidentally around. When they would have spawned on the P2 side, they give it up, and well, Seattle would catch a break this time and secure this one, 250-249. Two insane matches back to back there. So we would get a map number 5. It would be St. Petro, and I was surprised to even see it go map number 5. But again, I'll let you know when Seattle Search and Destroy gets better. 6-2 for Minnesota. They take it and move their way forward to play up against Paris. That matchup would start up on Azir Cave first. Tight game early. Minnesota, again, would be very calm and collected. They open up a furious second rotation. Everyone would hit 20-plus kills. It would end up a little bit easier than the first rotation would have suggested, 250-150 Minnesota. Gunrunner for the search and destroy. Minnesota would start off hot, looking like they had Paris's number, but Paris would find all these great flank retakes, would send it to round 11 in comeback fashion, and then find a way to secure the round 11 6-5, the score going the way of the Legion. So now we go to another domination. It would be Gunrunner. Paris did not look like they were ready to play against Minnesota, who was all over the map. First half from the A side, they were just doing such a convincing job across the B coal mines. They did the same thing from the C side. Godorex and Silly popped for 30 almost each. One of them had 29, the other had 30. Insane kill totals. And then we get St. Petro for map number 4. And Minnesota was not going to drop a respawn against Paris, not today. Minnesota was just winning more gunfights, led to better rotations on Petro, 250, 167. So let's talk matches for tomorrow. We've got the playoff bracket. We'll give you a look at it. It's going to be Dallas versus Minnesota, and Chicago will be playing up against Florida. This is going to be a little bit of a repeat for both squads. A little bit of revenge grunge going on here, as this is a repeat of Minnesota-Dallas from LA, and for Chicago, it's a repeat of Chicago-Florida from Atlanta. The last time we saw this, Dallas, Minnesota went 5. It had that nail-biting Hackney Yard hardpoint that came down to a final 3 seconds, and then it wouldn't quite go Minnesota's way on the search and destroy. Last time we were out, Minnesota was able to split the hardpoints, take the dom, but they lost both search and destroys. Do you see things changing this time around? I think yes, as long as they stay away from Gunrunner search and destroy in some fashion going into Dallas tomorrow. Dallas has been playing very well there, a 6-2 versus Toronto, but they also found a 6-2 versus Minnesota the last time around. Personally speaking, I've got Minnesota taking it this time. They have looked very complete all the way through. Yes, the game 5 versus Seattle was scary, but I think more surprising was the evidence we saw versus Chicago. Yes, it was a 3-0, but it was a 10-point game in hardpoint, a round 11, and a 7-point dom, where Minnesota, with a couple of exceptions of, again, the full sail, not quite holding on to the gamble on the Ramaza hardpoint, and then just getting beat up a little bit on Gunrunner when they had a chance to possibly go for neutrals. I think they'll do a better job versus Dallas. I've got Minnesota taking this one in 4 or 5, depending on who's got map choices up first. It's going to be a tight one, but I think Minnesota can do it, and I think this is their time to do it, even though Dallas is playing very well. Now, Shotzi, Illy, Hugh have all played well this weekend. There's something about this Minnesota team that makes me feel like they're going to be able to pull it out. I don't have set stats for this one, guys. I'm just giving you a gut feeling, gut check reaction. So for Florida, Chicago. Will Chicago get the revenge against Florida this time? Again, it went to 5 last time we saw it. A tight Azir Cave hardpoint, a relatively tight Arklov Peak search, and nothing else is really all that tight. Florida is not looking like the same team on St. Petro that they did when they played up against Chicago at Atlanta. I've got Chicago taking this one at 4. I've got Chicago winning the domination. They've looked very good there so far all weekend. They also have not dropped a search and destroy, again, against 2 relatively solid search and destroy squads. I've got Chicago in 4 on this one, which would give us a Chicago-Minnesota rematch, not just from this weekend, but also from Atlanta. It was tight both times they played, but I think Chicago's going to take this one. They're looking very solid. I love the new role swap for them, even though it's not that much of a role swap. I just feel like Chicago's going to be able to take this one, but anything can happen. If you're one of those guys who's out there betting, just, again, take a look at what lines look solid, and if you like certain maps or modes over your opponents, feel free to take the other way around. Again, for both of these matchups, they really could go either way. I think we've got the best 4 teams on the weekend playing at the end of the weekend, which is appropriate. So that's kind of my take, my predictions. Let me know what you think. Tomorrow we'll recap the final playoff, plus I'll be giving you guys the Challengers recap of what happened in APAC, EU, and NA for that 10K series that's also going on online. If you like the video, make sure you like the video, and if you enjoy the content, please try to subscribe on your way out. It does help a lot, it means a lot, and hopefully we'll catch you back for the full recap after the day is done. Until then, hope you keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.